Man, UNC put it on NC State yesterday. Put it on them yesterday. And that final score that we had yesterday, 97-73, didn't even feel that close.
They almost got free Bojangles biscuits at the Dean Smith Center last night. That would have been the icing on the cake for the fans in attendance.
It would have.
But what the heck, NC State?
We'll get to NC State here in a bit. But to the victor goes the spoils. North Carolina, that felt like one of the more complete games they've played this entire season. Early in the game, it was 6-6. A few minutes into the game, before you know it, UNC's up 46-18. And there's still a lot of time left in the first half. The game wasn't even close. And a game that North Carolina had to have. Had to have it. If they want to make the NCAA tournament, couldn't afford to lose that one. Not only did they win it, they won it emphatically. And Hubert Davis on the Tarheel Sports Network after the game talked about what led to that team's quality play early in the game.
You know, big emphasis going into this game. They got 16 offensive rebounds against us in the first matchup. It was like, it can't happen tonight. You know, we have to put a body on them, and we have to get the rebound. And once we got the rebound, we knew that we would have an advantage in transition, and that's what happened. And that's been for us all year. Like, we've been consistently great in transition. But in order to get there, you have to get stops, and you got to rebound, and we did that. And the whole energy level, and then our press, we started pressing and creating turnovers, and the crowd was just amazing. It's, you know, the weather out there is rough.
He mentioned a couple things. Press, rebounding, more balanced scoring because they can score in transition. But most importantly, let's go to first things first here. The second chance points for UNC yesterday. They had 21 second chance points. It's the most they've had this season since the season opener against Elon, where they had 22. It felt like Carolina basketball watching them yesterday. They have 14 offensive rebounds yesterday. 14 offensive rebounds. He mentioned about how in the last game when they played, how NC State had 16 offensive rebounds. NC State only had 21 rebounds as a team yesterday. That's it. UNC nearly doubled them up. I think it was 40-21, if I remember correctly, off the top of my head. 40-21 total rebounding. They absolutely crushed them on the glass, and it led to, obviously, a lot of second chance points that I mentioned, 21 of them yesterday. They had 52 points in the paint. UNC got to the paint at will yesterday, whether it was Cadeau, Davis, Tremble, guys getting in the lane off dribble penetration and either finishing it themselves or throwing up lobs to Van Allen Lubin. Van Allen Lubin didn't even have a point in the first half. Then all of a sudden, boom, he's got like 12 in the early part of the second half just because NC State didn't have an answer. They made an adjustment to stop one thing, and the next thing was just right there. So the second chance opportunities were there. And Hubert Davis, as you heard in that soundbite a moment ago, talked about their press. And Carolina executed their press to damn near perfection. They forced NC State to play at a tempo overall in the game. I think they obviously were uncomfortable playing. But we even mentioned this yesterday. We mentioned it even on Tuesday. Against Syracuse, North Carolina, after they made free throws, oftentimes they set up a 1-2-1-1 press. Full court pressure. So one person guarding the person who's inbounding the ball, two people kind of flanking him to his sides, but a few feet behind him, one person in the middle, kind of intermediate, and one person guarding deep, like a free safety in football. 1-2-1-1. You saw them especially do that when they had a smaller group on the floor, when they had 3 or 4 guards on the floor. They did that especially with their smaller lineup. They continued to put the pressure on NC State. And even if they weren't going the 1-2-1-1 zone or on the inbound, that press, they were still picking guys up at 3/4 court and just having NC State maneuver around them just to get the ball across the timeline, forcing them to play at a tempo and make decisions at a tempo that North Carolina State was not ready to do. And Hubert Davis, again, on the Tarheel Sports Network with Jones Angel and the crew over there on their radio broadcast, talked about what the difference defensively that they made things, what they did defensively, I guess you could say, that made things so difficult for NC State overall.
Yeah, on ball screens, we just did a really good job of making them make plays in tight spaces. We were connected to shooters. We didn't give the rollers a clean lane to get to the basket. We really forced them into tough contested mid-range shots, which very difficult to make. And once we were able to get the rebound, then everybody was running, we were getting out in transition. And but I thought defensively we did a really good job. And then when we pressed, I thought we just kept creating turnovers, and that was just ignited us. And just we played really well.
We'll get into the mishandlings of NC State here in the next segment, but North Carolina, like I said, absolutely executed that to a T. The first time in the game they went to the 1-2-1-1 press, it was right after a free throw that was made. I was like, oh, there's the press. There it is, right there. Forced a turnover. Ball's out of bounds against NC State. Forced a turnover. It was just boom, boom, boom. One right after the other. One right after the other. Again, I'll get into the NC State side of this next, but I was like, oh, if I knew, I hope darn well that you did. But all that pressure, the second chance opportunity, brings me to my third point of UNC's win yesterday. It felt like, especially from a scoring standpoint, it was the most balanced that they looked all season. Again, not that there weren't games where they were good down low, scoring points in the paint, or getting some second chance points or getting fast break opportunities. It felt like it was all there together. As I mentioned, 21 second chance points, second most that they've had all season, only behind the 22 they had in game number 1 against Elon. 14 fast break points, 52 points in the paint. If you even look on the outside shooting, they were 8 of 20 from behind the arc. Now, okay, that's 40%. That's not bad. RJ Davis struggled from behind 3. He was just 1 of 8. But overall, pretty good shooting. You put up 97. After you just played on the road against Syracuse, and you had 88 on the road at Syracuse. The scoring balance was not only how they scored, but who scored as well. Ben Allen-Lubin, strong second half. We saw Jalen Withers step back and take a couple of three-pointers. Ian Jackson was hitting a couple of shots from the outside as well. The scoring was balanced throughout the lineup. The scoring was balanced in how they did it. So yeah, North Carolina, one of their most complete games that they've played this season. This coming Saturday, when you're at home against Virginia, 4 o'clock game at the Dean Dome, we saw Virginia, even against Duke, they're playing back or getting to that style play that Tony Bennett had established, that strong defensive game. Let's see if they can get those transition opportunities. Let's see if they can still have somewhat of a balance. Even though you might not score 97, you might do what Duke did and score at 80 and still be balanced in that regard. But the next 4 for UNC, if they play like they did yesterday over their next 4 games, they're winning those 4. Home against Virginia Saturday, at Florida State on Monday, home against Miami next Saturday, and then at Virginia Tech. If they played like they did yesterday, they're winning their next 4 games, which they gotta have. They gotta have if they want to make the NCAA tournament. But yesterday was as good as it has been, as good as it looked all season for North Carolina, blowing out your rival. Wasn't even close.